Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. I have the Kindle today because we're going to talk about something I read. And I don't know how to classify this. It's not really a book. It's a series of stories, 6 short stories that together tell a book, or make a book. Kind of more of a novella. They're very short stories, so it's maybe like a 100-page book or something like that. And before I tell you what the book is, or the books, or whatever, however you want to classify this thing that I read, I am a person that believes in second chances. Actually, I kind of believe in infinite chances as long as there's growth, right? If somebody wrongs me, I'll give them another chance. If they wrong me again in the exact same way, I have very little patience for that. But if they tried and still wronged me, and then tried, infinite chances, maybe. I don't know. That's probably not true. But I try really hard for that. I try to be fully understanding that I'm not that person. And I don't know what's driving them. As a creative person who has had very little success with his creations, I strive for not perfection, because I've understood, when I was younger I definitely did. I now understand that that's an unattainable goal. I should be striving to better myself every time I create, every time I make something. Every time I take a picture, every time I write a story, every time I make a board game, every time I create furniture, make it better than the last time. Work towards something. And when that doesn't happen, with something that I'm consuming, so I've put my faith in a person or a team or whatever, and repeatedly they show me that they don't have the goal of being better. They have the goal of maybe, I don't know. I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but it feels like the goal is make money. Maybe the goal is to tell a good story, and they just don't know how to do that, and that's fine. I will give them that chance, and I'll go, well, I'm just not connecting with them, and I don't need to keep giving chances, right? Because maybe that's just how it is for them. In this particular instance, this is a collection of 6 stories told by 2 authors. They work together. They have worked together in the past. I have read their previous work, and I have feelings. I have a lot of feelings about that previous work. This work, I do not have a strong reaction to. I have a reaction to it, but not a strong reaction. And I think maybe it's the story behind these 2 collections of work from these 2 authors that I want to tell. Not necessarily the story about this collection. This is The Boy and the Iron Box from Guillermo del Torro and Chuck Hogan. This is a 6-part story set on a mountaintop with some commandos who discover something questionable. Now, if you know the names, Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan wrote a trilogy called The Strain. And there was a TV show based on it. And that trilogy was phenomenal until the last 2 chapters. And those last 2 chapters, I wanted to burn those books, to just make a website just faming these people. Like, it was the most absurd ending to anything I've ever read. And I loved those books up until that moment in time, right? The books are a vampire story, but told from a modern science perspective. It's a science-based vampire story where we discover the mechanism that created this vampire strain and how to combat it and how to work against it and whatever. And it was fantastic. The story dug into why silver works and why sunlight works, and the whole process, and the whole time this apocalypse is happening, and it was really well done. It was a thriller. It was page turning. Just go. I was just super into this story. If you don't know the story and you want to read the books, please do. Just don't read. When they go to Canada at the end, just stop reading. Just make up your own ending. Your own ending will be far better than what they did with the end of that story. And I'm still mad about it. And this was decades ago. I don't know, early 2000s. I don't remember when it came out. I just remember being fascinated by that story. It was so freaking good. And then that stupid ass ending. So if you don't want spoilers, stop listening. But essentially, it comes down to there is no ending. An angel comes down and saves humanity. And it was just the most absurd. It wasn't a plot twist. It wasn't anything other than the authors have no idea how to end this book. So Deus Ex Machina, we have an angel come down and save humanity. And it's the dumbest BS ever. In a story that was so heavily science-based up until that point, it just becomes absurd. And it just was, through the book, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever read in my entire life. That doesn't happen here. I could argue that this is also a vampire story. It's something like a vampire story. There is a supernatural element to this book. That supernatural element is a force unknown to the people in this book. It's very similar in that vein. However, it has an ending that isn't Deus Ex Machina. It has a character that gets his final moment. And yeah, that's all I can say without giving too much away. I think this is worth reading, especially since it's 6 little like 20, 30-minute reads, like 6 real small chapters, 20 pages. Just kind of sit down, read one of those 20-page chapters, move on with your life, come back to it later, read another one. Kind of like digesting some episodes of TV. I loved that format. It was a cool format. I will say, the first chapter, I almost didn't come back to the series because it was just kind of a little hard to follow. But here's the thing. Here's the reason this is just kind of is because what I found was none of the good writing from The Strain was in here. The writing in here is just bad. Like, it's not bad in a doesn't know the English language and conjugates incorrectly. Just bad in, like, it's rushed. It's confusing dialogue. It's kind of just weird. It's not engaging. I think that's what I'm looking for. Where The Strain was like a masterpiece in pacing and storytelling, this is kind of just like, what is happening right now? The people who they crash at the top of a mountain. That's the start of the thing. And they're all like mercenary commandos. And so they talk in mercenary commando ways about things that the reader doesn't understand, and we'll never figure it out. It is what it is. It's kind of like one of those, what was the books that everybody loves? Black Company. Just kind of thrown into this military world, and you're expected to pick up the pieces and figure out what's going on. These guys say things constantly that just doesn't make any sense. As an English reader, I'm going to say this is like the most pretentious, what is it called? Not pretentious. This is some whiny white boy BS. They all have really weird names, and so it was really hard to follow them. They're all like Russian names or something, or Serbian, or I don't know, like weird non-English names that made it very difficult to follow who was who and why do I care about that person and who's related to who. Like, I had to give them fake names just to process it in my head. And again, that's just stupid privilege, right? That's not a mark on the book. But the military jargon and the weird dialogue where they just suddenly, I don't know, testosterone up and yell at something at each other that doesn't make any sense to the conversation they're having. It's very strange. It's a very strange way to tell a story. The story as a whole, like I said earlier, I thought it was well done. I think there's an unknown force that these guys are up against. And by the end, you get some resolution to that. And you get a character that has a bit of an arc through the story, and he has his moment, and he gets his victory, I guess, in his eyes. Whether that's an actual victory or not, you figure it out. But for him, for his moment in time, he got his moment, he did his thing, and cool. Great. However, not only is the writing weird, there's this exposition at the end that's just a letdown. It's one of those situations where it's a short story, like I said, like 100 to 120 pages. I don't know. It's not long. And through the whole thing, the first 5 chapters, you just have these guys like, and you know, kind of like a horror movie. Something keeps happening, and they are like, I got no idea what's happening, and they try to investigate, and then something else happens, and they try to investigate, and something else happens, and then by chapter 5 or book 5, there's this new something happening, and you're like, oh no, it's the, you know, whatever. And then in chapter 6, instead of those characters like getting their time to figure the problem out and work out a solution, the kind of I guess the villain, I don't know if you call it a villain in this story, whatever, the thing that they are, the problem that they are facing, literally sits down and tells who ends up being the main character everything that's going on. Like there's that "before I kill you, Mr. Bond" moment where he goes, "Hey, let me tell you my story." Yeah, and it's just like the most dumb information dump. What? It was weird. Like, come on. These guys, sure, they're not highly educated commandos, but they could have had their moment figuring some stuff out and maybe coming to a conclusion, and that would have been a larger impact on the main character's final moment. It would have been more like, "Ha, I really did it," instead of just this being sat down and told, you know, tonight, you got until tonight. Let's, you know, here's what I am. Here's what you are. Let's figure this thing out. And it was just bizarre. A bizarre scene. Although, you know, I think I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It has a ton of 4 and 5. People seem to love this. It was free for Prime Reading, so I don't know if it still is, but yeah, very weird second chance. And I think based on this, I won't continue to read anything these guys write. It's just I felt better overall reading this versus The Strain because the ending of The Strain was so bad. But the writing in The Strain was vastly superior to this. It's almost like they just stopped caring how, like, we don't even care how to write. We're just going to put, I don't know, words on a page or something. It felt really strange. It felt like they devolved in writing this story. Okay, Boy in the Iron Box, Guillermo del Toro, and Chuck Hogan. Thoughts? Put them in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's 1,000+ little things happy, successful people do differently. We are learning 10 habits you must quit to be happy. Number 9, quit trying to be someone you're not. One of the greatest challenges in life is being yourself in a world that's trying to make you like everyone else. Someone will always be prettier, smarter, and younger, but they will never be you. Be yourself, and the right people will love you, and you'll love yourself more too. This is one of those things I figured out very early in life, and I've always been the beat of my own drum person. I wear my own clothes, I listen to my own things, I read my whatever, and it has caused me so much pain and suffering, and I mean that very truly. As a person who has struggled with mental health his whole life, it caused me a lot of problems as a child, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I think it's been an invaluable resource at this later stage in life to just be me and not give any craps. Eventually, I figured out how to not give any craps, but yeah. I was unique and I cared, and that is the hard part.